Trade and Industry Minister Ebrahim Patel is expected to address business leaders who will gather in Midrand this morning. This is part of the BRICS Business Forum, which is holding a 3-day trade fair ahead of the main summit next week. The forum generally meets on the eve of the summit with the hopes of expanding trade among businesses that are represented in participating countries. Let's get you a sense of how things are looking early on this Saturday. Motheo Khoaripe is part of our team there. He joins us now live. And Motheo, if you can, place us at the venue. From what you see so far, do all these countries have an equal footing in the lead up to the summit?
Thank you very much, Ayanda. Of course, this is one important forum ahead of the main event next week. This Business Council Forum is one that holds basically a platform for all the member countries to come showcase some of their trade benefits, whether it's China, India, South Africa, even Russia here, to just amongst themselves come together and show some of the opportunities they can have. Of course, these BRICS bloc countries hold about 50% of GDP. That's expected in around 2030. And of course, them coming together is trying to increase that particular growth and trade amongst each other. And today, Minister Patel really laying out the red carpet for all these countries to join South Africa and see some of the key opportunities on the continent as well. So we've seen the Bank of China here as well, Afri-Exim Bank as well. So some of the funders already here to see some of the businesses in engineering, digital computing, and all the skills that can be shared amongst the member countries. Of course, this is very important ahead of the main meeting because we'll see a lot of trade increasing amongst the countries. There is also interest from other countries that want to join BRICS, and they'll be here as well to see how these BRICS countries can benefit their economies.
Yeah, and you know, in some ways, Motheo, South Africa has already made a commitment to the Africa Free Continental Trade Area in some respects. It looks like you've got a guest. Let me allow you to get into that as I ask my next question. How do you reckon that Africa Continental Free Trade Area is going to, in some ways, bleed into what these nations are hoping to do at BRICS?
Well, Ayanda, a few months ago, Dr. Stavros, amongst a member delegation from South Africa, went to Nigeria to try and increase more attention around this BRICS partnership. Of course, a lot of people have viewed it as a South Africa-based, a bloc, while it is a greater continental bloc. And he and other member countries from the continent met and just discussed some of the opportunities they can, gain from this particular event. And just Dr. Nicolo, coming through now, this is the BRICS Africa Summit meeting, of course, and I see you've included the rest of the continent because South Africa is just a gateway to what is the potential of the rest of the continent.
Quite correct. And firstly, thanks very much for having me. The theme for this year's summit, and of course when we chair the summit, as is the case now, as South Africa, we also get to determine the theme. And the theme is a very deliberate one. It is BRICS and Africa, promoting partnership, sustainable development and inclusive multilateralism. So the Africa Continental Free Trade Area presents a significant opportunity, both for the continent but also for BRICS. South Africa, as you correctly said, is the gateway. We see ourselves as the fulcrum between the Continental Free Trade Area, which will aggregate all these African markets, provide scale and volume, and on the other hand, BRICS. So this is a very deliberate theme and a very strong focus on how do we collectively grow the African economies, how do we look at partnerships that promote things like technology transfers, know-how transfers. And the two main benefits I see here, firstly, the BRICS markets, or the four BRIC countries, are significantly big markets. The number 2, 5 and 8 economies in the world are part of BRICS. And secondly, around 40% of the world's population is made up, of the BRICS population makes up 40% of the world's population. Significant markets, an opportunity to get market access, but also an opportunity to start harmonizing and leveraging the Africa Continental Free Trade Area as well.
I'm sure, Dr. Nicolo, the question came from other member countries in Africa to say, we see South Africa is benefiting from BRICS. What opportunity lies there for us?
So I think the theme most manifest opportunities. So a lot of people are asking, well, does BRICS actually work for South Africa? So at face value, certainly it has worked, because our trade with the BRICS countries has grown. If I look at the period 2017 to 2021, that 4-year period, there was a 44% growth in trade. So in trade terms, it's grown. However, one needs to also unpack and drill down on those trade statistics and trade patterns. And one of the things that is coming through is, of course, that we are running trade deficits with the BRICS countries. And that's not really a problem per se. It's rather an opportunity, I think, to see what are the products, goods and services and sectors that we can capitalize on to export less raw material. Of course, we will continue exporting raw material, but we also need to start exporting more finished products. And I think that will become a focus for the next 12 months for the Council.
And what will be the impact of BRICS on the Africa Free Trade Agreement? Because that agreement is amongst countries on the continent, and how they can benefit. Will the two clash, you think?
No, I think the two are complementary and supplementary, both incidentally. So you've got already, as I said, BRICS represents 40% of the world's population. In purchase power parity terms, 32% of the world's GDP. To put that in some perspective, that's slightly bigger than the G7's GDP. So you've got BRICS that has significant scale. Of course, we need to coordinate it better, but thus far there's been strong coordination and much more to come. And then we're looking to pull off the same thing through the free trade area on the African continent, once again aggregating those markets. And the key here is that you're aggregating these markets to get scale, and you leverage that scale. And the continent is in dire need of industrialization. South Africa is the most diverse and industrialized economy on the African continent. But we need to continue industrializing. We need to industrialize the continent so that you get social and economic stability on the continent, particularly post-COVID. We've seen that Africa was hardest hit of all the continents, might have had the lowest mortality rates, but hardest hit economically speaking. So these are the opportunities that we need to start unpacking and garnering for the future.
And as an exchange, the other BRICS member countries, India, China, Brazil, what opportunities do they see on the rest of the continent in order to garner trade?
The opportunities they see first and foremost is a young and growing population, or a young and growing continent. I think it's a well-known statistic now that by 2050, Africa will double its number of inhabitants. This is 1.3 billion right now. It's estimated to grow to 2.5, 2.6 billion. And 2050 is not that far away, actually, if you think about it. The second thing is Nigeria is a country where there's only 2 countries right now in the world that have a population that exceeds 1 billion people. Nigeria is going to become the third, is what people are estimating, all the analysts that do this type of work. So you'll have in Africa a country that has a population of 1 billion. So young population, growing, energetic, and scale as well. And those are the most attractive elements. And when you've got young populations, very important that these partnerships involve the technology aspects, technology know-how and skills transfer as well. And that is a very strong discussion, or a very intense discussion that goes on in BRICS. In fact, as the BRICS Business Council, we have 9 working groups. One of those working groups is actually on skills development, in fact.
And when we look at this particular affair that's happening from the 19th to the 23rd, how important is that to make sure that there's a platform for all entrepreneurs, all business people, all trade ministers to come here together and find the opportunities?
There are a number of objectives for hosting the summit here, and I'm only really occupied or mandated to speak on the business aspects. Of course, there's a political agenda which I won't get into at all, but suffice to say that some of the objectives we want to achieve is business-to-business interactions. So an exhibition provides an ideal platform for that. I also mentioned we have 9, soon moving to 10 working groups. And these working groups are all deliberately selected as economic trigger sectors, as we call them. These are sectors that we believe can move the needle on the economy. So they include things like aviation economy, manufacturing, infrastructure, finance, etc. There are 9 of them. So very important that in those particular working groups, who have been working for the last 12 months and who have compiled a report, very important that the interactions there are around shaping the market and market access, and that's exactly what these discussions are about.
All right, that was Dr. Stavros Nicolo. They're telling us about the lay of the land for today and this particular forum for all the businesses that are coming here together. Ayanda will be giving you more detail as Minister Patel rolls out the red carpet for the rest of the countries that are joining us here to find the opportunities for trade with the BRICS members.
The minister's address expected in the next hour. For now, Motheo Khoaripe, part of our team in Midrand. Thanks very much indeed.